From Manila to the globe, this is World Newsfeed, bringing you the biggest stories shaping our times. Good morning, I'm Raine Musñgi. Let's dive into the headlines making a global impact. Despite having been re-elected as president, Moldova's leader Maya Sandu has blasted what she calls outside meddling. A knife-edge majority of 50.17% voted yes to Moldova's pivotal referendum on joining the European Union, nearly final results showing on Monday. Russia says the election in Moldova was not free, and the results showed a hard-to-explain increase of votes in favor of President Sandu and the European Union. Moldova is a landlocked country bordering Ukraine and Romania and emerged as an independent republic following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991.
Moldova needs a different government. Moldova needs respect for citizens, for our people, regardless of ethnicity, age, political views, religion. I did not participate in the referendum. I do not support the position of the current government, which came up with an idea not related to the European Union itself. This is a referendum to change the constitution. But at the same time, I am a supporter of Moldova's European aspirations.
Thanks to you, dear Moldovans, we have won the first battle in a difficult fight that will determine the future of our country. We fought fairly and won justly in an unjust struggle. There are genuine concerns or genuine voters. There are people who genuinely do not understand what the EU is about and what EU is going to bring to Moldova. And then there are people who just sold their votes. And in any democracy, it's normal to have people who have different views. What's not normal is to have a situation where criminal groups are bribing voters. This is a relatively new phenomenon for Moldova. This is a dangerous phenomenon for any democracy. And I do believe that the rest of the countries should learn from Moldova.
Well, Europe is all in for Moldova. The EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell said Moldova and the European Union share a common future. In a post on X, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, in the face of Russia's hybrid tactics, Moldova shows that it is independent, it is strong, and it wants a European future. EU Parliament President Roberta Metsola said people in Moldova chose hope, stability, opportunity. She condemned any activities in interference in Moldova's presidential election, constitutional referendum on EU integration. Meanwhile, Israeli forces have stormed shelters in the north, detaining dozens of men as part of an aggressive ground operation. The raid is deepening amid Israel's intensifying military response following Hamas attacks earlier this month. As the fighting escalates, Israeli forces are ramping up their offensive, targeting Hamas strongholds across Gaza. But this latest move, raiding shelters, hospitals, and detaining civilians, has sparked outrage as concerns grow over the humanitarian impact on Gaza's already battered population. The United Nations says over 1 million Palestinians have been displaced, and Gaza's infrastructure is collapsing under relentless bombardment. Israel's strikes have targeted Hezbollah-linked financial institution Al-Qard Al-Hassan Association, explaining that it is funded by Iran. In a video released by the army that it said showed Halevi meeting troops in southern Lebanon, Levy said these strikes were intended to weaken both Hezbollah and Iran. Meanwhile, Reuters was not able to independently verify the location and the date when the videos were filmed. There was no immediate statement from the organization Hezbollah or the Lebanese government. U.S. President Joe Biden is deeply concerned after sensitive files revealing Israel's potential strike plans on Iran were leaked. The leaked files include details about military logistics, key targets, and the timeline of a possible Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. The leak comes at a time of escalating tensions in the Middle East. Al Jazeera reports that Israel has neither confirmed nor denied the authenticity of these documents. Iran has written to the UN nuclear watchdog to complain about Israeli threats to strike its atomic energy sites. In the U.S., the Central Park Five are suing former President Donald Trump for defamation, decades after he took out full-page ads calling for the death penalty against them. The men, who were exonerated in 2002 after being wrongfully convicted of raping a jogger in Central Park, say Trump's 1989 ads did irreparable damage to their lives and reputations. At the BRICS summit in Kazan, Vladimir Putin sends a clear message: Russia remains a global power, rallying allies as Western sanctions persist. Details when World Newsfeed returns. Stay with us. Welcome back. As the U.S. election draws near, Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin is sending a clear message of support to Ukraine. During a surprise visit, Austin met with top Ukrainian officials, reiterating America's commitment to helping Ukraine stand against Russian aggression. With growing domestic pressure ahead of the 2024 election, Austin's visit comes at a critical time for both Ukraine and U.S. politics. The stakes are rising and the world is watching as both countries prepare for what's next. Well, Russia is sending a bold message to the world. It is not stepping back. At the BRICS summit, Russian President Vladimir Putin reiterated that Russia is still a major player on the global stage, despite being mired in the Ukraine conflict. To be held in Kazan from October 22nd to the 24th, Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as well as leaders of Iran, Armenia, Egypt, and Bolivia are among those that have confirmed their participation. Analysts believe Putin aims to galvanize support among BRICS allies, while the West continues its sanctions and isolation tactics. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is on the mend after suffering a head injury earlier. The government minister confirmed that Lula is well and in stable condition following a minor accident. The 78-year-old leader was hospitalized but released after receiving treatment. Brazil's political scene breathed a collective sigh of relief as Lula quickly returned to his duties. In his stead, Brazil's Foreign Minister Mauro Ruiz Vieira arrived in Kazan on Monday to take part in the BRICS summit hosted by Russian President Putin. Diplomatic tensions are boiling in Seoul. South Korea has summoned Russia's ambassador to protest North Korean troop deployments, reportedly backed by Moscow. The move comes after reports that North Korean soldiers could be on their way to support Russian forces in Ukraine. Seoul is demanding answers as fears grow over the implications of North Korea's involvement in the Ukraine conflict. The standoff is heating up in a region already fraught with geopolitical stress. Meanwhile, a breakthrough between India and China. Both nations have reached an agreement on how to patrol the highly disputed border region in the Himalayas. The deal follows years of clashes and rising tensions along the line of actual control, where deadly skirmishes have erupted over the past few years. Meanwhile, Al Jazeera reports that while the deal doesn't resolve any issues, it's a significant move toward reducing conflict in one of the world's most volatile border regions. Experts warn that the truce could be fragile as both nations continue their military buildup along the border. In a historic move, Indonesia's new president, Prabowo Subianto, has sworn in the country's largest cabinet since 1966 with a staggering 109 members. The expanded government includes key figures from across the political spectrum, signaling Subianto's intent to balance power and deliver on his promises of economic reforms and regional security. This enormous cabinet is tasked with tackling major challenges: job creation, economic stability, and defense. The Associated Press reports that Subianto's political alliances reflect a blend of technocrats and military figures, including his longtime rival turned ally, Joko Widodo, who takes on a senior advisory role. And Turkey is looking to close a dark chapter in its history following the death of exiled cleric Fethullah Gulen. Gulen, who has lived in the U.S. since the 1990s, was blamed by Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan for orchestrating the 2016 failed coup. His death marks a symbolic end to an era of tension between Ankara and the Gulen movement. Al Jazeera reports that Erdogan's government is eyeing this moment to move on, with hopes of stabilizing the nation and leaving the bitter divisions behind. And can the world's biggest biodiversity summit in Colombia spark the urgent action needed to save nature before it's too late? Updates from the COP16 in Colombia in a moment. Stay on World Newsfeed. Welcome back. We're now looking at live pictures out of the House of Representatives in Quezon City, where the 9th session of the Quad Committee hearing will be investigating the deadly drug war during the Duterte administration. That's about to begin anytime now. Billionada News Channel will be carrying that all day live. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, Hurricane Oscar weakens into a tropical storm after its second landfall yesterday in Guantanamo, Cuba, near the city of Baracoa. Oscar lashed eastern Cuba with strong rains and intense winds, bringing a forceful storm surge and caused Cuba's most severe blackout in years. The storm is hampering efforts to reinstate services. Oscar is still producing heavy rainfall, causing flash floods over eastern Cuba. Moving at 80 kilometers per hour, it's forecast to weaken further before it emerges off the coast and moves near the Bahamas later today. The world's largest biodiversity summit, COP16, kicked off in Cali, Colombia on Sunday, bringing together nearly 200 countries to tackle the accelerating global nature crisis. The two-week event, running until November 1st, focuses on implementing the 2022 Kunming-Montreal Agreement, a global framework that halts biodiversity loss likened to the Paris Agreement, but for nature. Delegates are under pressure to get back on track toward 2030 goals, including conserving 30% of the planet's land and seas. However, only 31 nations have submitted detailed action plans so far. Colombia's Environment Minister Susana Mohammed emphasized the urgency of addressing funding gaps that are slowing progress. The summit will focus heavily on finding new ways to finance conservation efforts, with poorer nations struggling to meet biodiversity targets due to limited resources. On to sports now. Tiger Woods is expected to make his return to competitive golf in January next year. The 15-time major champion is seen to make his debut for TGL, a new tech-infused indoor team golf league, on January 14th. The 48-year-old Woods has played a limited schedule in recent years due to injuries. He recently had back surgery last month. On to football. Neymar makes a victorious return in the Asian Champions League, helping his side Al Hilal in a tough 5-4 win over UAE Pro League side Al Ain. The 32-year-old Brazilian star had not played for a year after suffering an ACL injury during Brazil's qualifier against Uruguay in October 2023. Finally, in tennis, Aryna Sabalenka replaces Iga Swiatek as the women's world #1 player. The Belarusian star had a remarkable campaign this year after she retained the Australian Open title in January and winning the US Open last month. Finally, in entertainment, K-pop boy band NCT Dream announced a comeback set for November 11th, revealing a teaser for a release titled Dreamscape. The format of the release was not specified. This follows their first English-language single, Rains in Heaven, and their extended play, Dreamscape, both released earlier this year. NCT Dream, launched in 2016, is known for addressing youth themes. They recently performed in Manila for their The Dream Show 3 Dreamscape tour, although Renjun was absent due to health issues. Scary news in Italy. A sinkhole opened up on a motorway in the southern region of Calabria. There were cars along that motorway when that happened, but firefighters say all passengers are safe. The sinkhole was apparently caused by heavy rains, with emergency crews doubling efforts to look for people who may have been affected by mudslides. Italy's southern regions are still reeling from extensive flooding due to intense rains that started Sunday. One death was reported, a man whose car was swept away by the torrent near Bologna. And that is all for now. Thank you so much for joining us. Catch up with us again tomorrow at 10 when we bring you the world in 30 minutes only on World Newsfeed. We bring you the live hearing of the Quadcom from the House of Representatives. Keep it here on the Billionaire News channel, always on top.